Hello. Right, you'll notice I'm not in my usual surroundings at the minute. This is my other, well, it's a sort of storage unit really. It's where I keep the Jensen. But seeing as it's coming up to show season at the minute, or soon in the next couple of months, I decided it's time to do a little bit of maintenance on this because I haven't touched it for a few months. And it's due an oil change. So I thought we'll do that. I've got some engine flush because there's a little bit of sludge and old stuff in there, which I'll talk about when we get to it. I've got some oil treatment and I've got some oil as well. 2050 this one takes, and a new oil filter as well. So I thought we'll do a little bit of that, and then I'll talk about why, and I'll talk about this car a little bit, and I'll talk about what engine it's got, and I'll talk about the history of it a little bit whilst I do the things. So yeah, tune in. And of course, you know the drill. Go and get the kettle on. Unfortunately, I haven't got a kettle here, so I'll have to just pretend. But I'm with you in spirit. So you might have noticed this isn't the original lump in here. The original engine for these was a Lotus 907 engine, 4-cylinder, on the piss, twin Deloto carbs, 2 litre, pretty good engine, really good engine for the time. Bit dubious about where Lotus got the idea for the engine from, but again, it is what it is. I couldn't get one of those for this, unfortunately. However, I measured the space, decided that it was big enough to fit one of these in, and so I got one of these. This is a Rover 3.5 litre V8 engine. Now, for our American viewers, this is a direct descendant of the Buick 215. I think it was the longest production run of any V8 engine, as far as I know, ever. I mean, it started out as, like I said, the Buick 215 and was taken on by Rover. I think it started production in the 60s. Potentially a little bit earlier, but Rover were making these mass production up until mid-90s, early mid-90s, and there is still a small company that still makes these in the UK, but they make them to order now, so they're not like mass produced as they were. But these are still knocking around now, and within the same idea as they were designed in. Cast aluminium block, same quintessential design, all that time, and as a consequence of the modern era, you can get one of these for a couple of £100, a really good one. So yeah, that's the route I went, and yeah, it's not too bad. The car itself, I'll put some pictures up as we're running along. I haven't worked out how to do voiceover over putting pictures on yet, so please bear with, but I'll put some pictures of the car and its various stages of its, do I want to say restoration? As it went, but I'll put a couple of pictures of how it started out and how it's finished. Anyway, this is what we're doing. I'm doing the oil change on that. So first, I'm going to start with the engine flush car lube. I bought 2 of these because I didn't know, well, I've never really used one. And I've got some oil treatment. I always put some of that in. Just helps with older engines and things. And then oil filter and the oil. If you don't know, ask the telephone in your pocket what filter and what oil it uses. And if you still don't know, go to a local automotive parts store. Don't go to Halfords if you're in the UK. They are robbing bastards. But go to like a Spartan or a Euro Car Parts or anywhere local. Small local stuff are good. And they should get you the right bits for the right bits. So I think we'll start by putting this in and then running the engine for 10 to 20 minutes. God damn. Oh, hi. Hello. You're new, I've not met you. How you doing? Oh, yes. Friends. Oh, no, unsure. Oh, yeah. All right, see you in a bit. Hello puss, mind your bum. So the reason why I'm doing this now is because I've got shows coming up. And after the last show of last year, the Shrewsbury Steam Rally, I started to notice a bit of a ticking noise. Not a knocking, not too loud, but a ticking noise coming from this bank, this side. And it was one of the rockers, I thought. So I thought, oh, okay, so I took this side off, and there was a lot of muck, a lot of gunk and oil and congealed mess in there. And then I realised that when I bought this engine, I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know how they worked. I didn't know the history. I knew nothing. And I just, does it run? Yes, get it in there. It was that sort of, that's where I was. It is quite worn. From what I can see, if you'll remember back to the video with that Ford SX V6 that's in the Reliance Scimitar, when I took the rocker cover off that, very clean, lovely, really, really nice. And if you remember, very clean, wasn't it, the SX V6? So you could see, and I could tell from that it was very, very well maintained, that it was looked after, and that was regular oil changes, regular maintenance to that engine. Somebody cared for it, somebody wanted to look after it. Whereas in stark contrast to this one, you could see that it had been abused. So from what I could tell from the serial number, this was out of a Land Rover 90, I think. So it's post unleaded fuel, so I don't have to worry about knocking any tappets or anything like that. I don't have to worry about to listen to those sort of noises. But yes, this had not been looked after, and I had no idea until I heard the noise. So these engines are designed with hydraulic tappets from the cam, or what they call hydraulic lifters if you're American, and these are designed in a certain way. It's very clever how the engine works. So the cam, which is what opens the valves, inlet valves and the exhaust valves, that cam has lobes on it, and those lobes push individual hydraulic lifters, which then in turn push individual push rods, which, I'll stop doing that, it looks a bit weird, which pushes the rockers, which then push the valves, open the valves. However, in older engines, you'll take note that you would have to adjust these tappets quite often. You would have to adjust the rocker assembly, you'd have to adjust the tappets. As the cam started to wear over its life, you would adjust it to take up that play. With this design, you don't have to do that. It does it for you to a certain degree. Those hydraulic lifters, once the cam starts to wear, those hydraulic lifters which are work off the engine oil, they absorb the engine oil and start to pump up those push rods to take up the play. And as a consequence of which, as the cam starts to wear, or the cam lobes start to wear, those hydraulic lifters will start to pump up and take up that slack. So although a very good design, you would not know how worn the engine were, or the cam was, until really it's almost too late, really. They're very good engines at hiding what's wrong inside. So as you can see now, it is quite tarnished, quite mucky. It's not too bad, because I have changed the oil in this a few times, but you'll see things like, what is that? There's a piece of plastic off something, great, I don't want that in there. But there'll be sludge and oil and muck, just congealed stuff. Again, it's a lot better than it looked actually last time I seen it. One of the main ways you can notice if there's something not quite right with the cam is the cam lobes are slightly tapered. So the cam just doesn't push the lifters up and push the rods up. The lobes of the cam are slightly chamfered, very, very slightly. And the lifters, hydraulic lifters, are machined to reciprocate. So that as that cam pushes those lifters or tappets will slowly move and rotate to help with oil distribution throughout that component. And as a result, the push rods will also rotate, or should also rotate, which are these here. These are the push rods, and they run down into the engine. These should rotate, but there are a couple that do not rotate. That is solid. That is solid, and that should not be the case. There is a few that are really, really not cool and don't want to move. So that means a couple of things, okay? That can either mean that the cam has worn, that little chamfer off each cam lobe is starting to wear, or there's gunk down in the hydraulic lifters which are impeding their operation. Really what the engine needs is a new cam in it and some new lifters. It's going to need a new, I know, I'm there with you. That's what it needs, and it will happen. I promise you it will happen. But for the time being, it's going to get a nice strip clean as best as I can, and it's going to get a new oil change, and that's all I'm going to do for it for the time being. But it's in the pipeline. I'm getting there. I've got too much on at the minute. So I'm going to get the other bank off, and I'm going to pull those lovely engine stripper stuff in there, and then we'll run the engine for about 10-20 minutes. We'll try and fire this up. This hasn't been running for about a month, so you'll be there to hear that. Sounds fantastic. While I've got you quickly, I want a small subject on oil. An oil change should happen between 6 to 8 months. I do mine every 6 months. But at the very worst, you should be changing the oil in your car. Classic car, modern car, it doesn't matter. At the very bare minimum, once a year. I mean, that's awful. But if you're using that car twice a day and you're driving it for a couple of hours every day, I do mine every 6 months. Now, the reason behind that, everyone knows that the engine needs oil. Everyone knows that. But I wanted to explain a little bit why and why it's important, because engine oil has a certain viscosity to it, and there's a reason why it's there. Engines are metal parts moving in concert with each other at great high speed, right? What are you doing back there, cat? Be careful. And without oil, if anyone's from any engineering background, you would know metal on metal is a big no-no, right? And the whole purpose of the oil within that engine is to create a very fine film surface of oil for those metal parts to roll on. They're not metal on metal, they're not touching each other. There's a very thin, continuous stream of oil which is supplied by the oil pump and the engine's mechanics and design to those areas to allow those two parts to maintain that oil sheen between them. Those pieces of metal should never meet. If after 6 months or 8 months your oil will start to lose viscosity through time anyway, it doesn't matter how much you drive it or how hard you drive it or how far you drive it, even if it sits there, over time that oil will lose its viscosity, which means it will become thinner. And if it becomes thinner, it means it will become more difficult for it to maintain what it's supposed to do between those metal counterparts. And eventually, those metal counterparts will start to touch. Now, it won't happen overnight, it won't be immediate, it will be very slow and gradual. But the most important part is you will not know it's happening. So over time, those bearings will be taking small pieces of metal off the bearings over time. You won't feel anything, you won't hear anything, and it will drive just fine as it's always done. But you won't know what's happening inside. So please don't neglect an oil change. You must do it, and it's very easy to do yourself. You don't need all this fancy stuff that I bought. All you'll need is the correct filter for the car and the correct oil for the car. That's it. Let's get that other side off and I'll show you this bit. Pour a little bit down each push rod, trying to keep it within the engine and not pour it on the inlet manifold, Frank. Okay, good. Rocker covers. Why are rocker covers the most awkward bolts to get in? I don't know why. Do you know what I mean? okay with it. And I've forgotten my socket set, so this is going to be interesting. Managed to find Old Faithful. Yeah, I don't know where my socket set is. Oh, yeah, okay. Great. Next. Oh. Which way am I going here? Am I tightening it? No. Why? Why is this hermetically sealed? Oh. Oh. Ah, very good. It's times like these you really appreciate that lift in the workshop, you know. Oh, I've gone the wrong way there. Alright, when doing this, your oil's going to be hot, so be very careful. Oh! Holy moly. Oh, I forgot to take the... Oh, no, I didn't. Oh no. Oh. And don't forget to take the drain plug out of your oil pan. Well, that's embarrassing. That's why I put carpet down at least. Right. Oh, bugger, what a pain in the arse. Well, you live and learn, guys. Okay. Oh. Lefty. Very good. Usually about now that I work out that this is the wrong filter. No, we're good. What you should always do is get some oil on your finger and rub it around that rim so that it makes a seal. Then what you need to do is prime it, which means put a little bit of oil in it so that the pump doesn't have to work as hard to fill it. Try to fill it if you can. If you can't, it's not a biggie. No biggie. Oh, alright. Now that should go straight back on. If you like, you can write the mileage on it. But if you know it's your car and you do it quite regularly, you know when you're supposed to do it. Should be fine. Right, that's the oil. That's that done. Oil's pretty much done now. We'll put the sump plug back on and we'll put all the fresh oil in it. Rathergood.com. That'll do. We'll pretend we didn't see that. Right, gals and gals, that's your lot. Quintessentially, that's it. Not too bad. It needed a bit of a maintenance anyway, especially because there's some shows coming up. I didn't want to leave it and then have to do it when I got too close to the time and then rush. And anyway, my final point and knowledge to you really is what to do with the old oil. If you're in the UK, there are things called tips and recycling centres. One of these are a tenner, which I use, or these are free. If you go to any garage, they've got loads of them, and all I used to do is just cut a hole in that and use that. And then I pour the oil into these, because I mean they're only sat in the bin outside the garage, they're recycling them anyway, so I always use them. Pour it into one of them, take it down to your tip and pour it into the recycling centre there. Don't pour it down the drain, don't pour it into grass, or be responsible please. Your old filters will go the same way, take them to the tip. But before you do, if you like, you can cut these open, you can have a look inside and see what's been caught in the filter element. Usually it's a good course of practice if you're in a performance application or if you're racing or what have you. Yes, you would sort of want to do that because you want to see if there's anything missing from the inside of your engine. But apart from that, yes, just please be responsible. So that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much for watching me make a complete arse of myself and cover myself in oil. But I don't like to hide my mistakes. I'm not a professional and I'm a normal person, and I like the cars, and I try and do as best as I can. And that's sort of what I like about doing these videos for you, because I've got quite some good feedback off a couple of you now, especially as I'm sort of, I can't believe there's 100 people that watch. I can't believe that. 100 people watch these, well nearly. And I get comments off guys that are like, "Ah, you've given me the inspiration, you've given me the drive to go and crack on my project," and that really fills me with a really deep sense of pride there. And I feel, yeah, it's a feeling I didn't expect to get. But I'm very grateful for it, and I'm very thankful that I can have that influence on somebody, or to convince somebody that you don't have to be an automotive mechanic that's been in the industry for 20 years to do something like this. Do you know what I mean? And it's all about trial and error and giving it a go. So get out there and give it a go. You might get oil all over yourself, but as long as you clean it up, it doesn't matter. So with that in mind, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Next video, I'm not quite sure what it will be, but potentially something more on this, potentially something more on the scimitar, as I start to get ready for shows and I try and get the scimitar ready for summer. So thank you very much for watching. If you like it, please give me a like, and please subscribe if you're not subscribed. I do, I do a lot on my scimitar. You'll see there's a load of old videos there, but there's also other videos that I do, and I've got other videos planned. So please stick around, and thank you very much. If you don't like me, give me one of those and drop it down in the comments. But until then, was that you? I'll see you next time.